Welcome to BFC Live for August 29th, Thursday. My name is Jay Rosenthal, and we've been away for a little bit, but we have two special guests today. First is Smokey Thomas from the Ontario Public Service Employees Union. Smokey, welcome.
Oh, thanks for having me back, Jay.
So we connected very first, October of 2017. Has the world changed at all since then?
Well, I think it's gone, as you said earlier, full circle. Yeah. It does seem like a lifetime ago.
It does, because when you came in, it was our first sort of videos that we did, and we were talking about how OPSI was going to play a pivotal role in the LCBO style model for cannabis in Ontario.
Yeah, and well, the Liberals actually, Kathleen Wynne actually rolled a model out that we supported. It was supported by harm reduction specialists, researchers, even people in the industry that I talked to. A lot of them came around and said, well, it's a good way to start. Yeah. I thought it was a tad conservative, no vape lounges and things like that. Should have had them like bars. Yeah. And, but, we'd have had 80 stores by now. But instead, when Doug Ford got elected, he just tossed it out.
Yeah, it was not just cannabis. It was a whole bunch of things that were swept out. And then I'm going to try to be as non-political as again, and then mishandled, right? Yes. And I think there's been broad understanding that the Ontario cannabis retail plan has been mishandled, certainly from your perspective. Yeah. But unbelievably, I think you believe the same thing that many in the industry believe, is that it's been mishandled in Ontario.
Oh, I really think it has been terribly, terribly mishandled. Ontario's behind every other province in the number of stores and how you can get access to it. Even the online was, you always expect a few glitches, but it was very troublesome from the get-go. It's very secretive. The warehouse in BC, they actually had a big party when
ribbon
they
cutting.
The ribbon cutting area.
Green ribbon cutting.
Can I tell you how we found it?
I know. Yeah, we talked about it. Actually. Yeah.
So we had a guy buy some, return it, and put a tracker in the return package, and we found the warehouse.
Hey, that's pretty smart to do. And so just for those that don't know, Ontario originally was going to have an LCBO style model. Yeah. They were planned to be, I think, within the first year, 150 stores. Yeah. The Ford government swept that out, started a new one. There was going to be unlimited based on market, which quickly became a lottery for 25 folks, five in Toronto, and the rest spread out, which has now gone to, there was another lottery for the next 48, or 42 rather, and we're still not there. We lag every other province in terms of numbers of stores. Recently, this week, you said in the next wave of whatever is going to happen here, the LCBO ought to be able to participate in getting them.
Yeah, I think they should, for a couple of reasons. One, about 25% of municipalities opted out, either because they didn't want cannabis at all, or they didn't like the private model, and I think most it was because they didn't like the private model. So if Mr. Ford was to allow the LCBO, what he would have to not allow, he'd have to direct them to enter, because they take their orders from Queen's Park, from Minister of Finance, actually. So if he was to direct them to open some stores or put them in the lottery or whatever, we have our labor relations issues with the LCBO, but as a business model, I believe it's second to none. It covers all the bases on social responsibility, availability, product testing. They do like 1 million product tests a year on alcohol. Right. My folks that do that work say, it's not hard to do cannabis. We'll learn that in short order. Right. So I just think it would be a really responsible option. And Mr. Ford says he's all about competition. That was supposed to keep the prices down. And he's opening alcohol up to competition by corner stores and everything else. And so if you think competition is so good, Mr. Ford, why don't you allow a public model? They have that kind of a model in BC in alcohol and their cannabis. So,
and it's interesting. And some of the more successful sort of early days retailers were in provinces on the East Coast that had just this type of model.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well, it worked. And so I think he spent his first 6 months undoing everything the Liberals did. And this was just one more of those things that he undid. Yeah. And he made a lot of mistakes. He undid a lot of things that were good. Nobody there's no labor leader fought with Liberals more than me about lots of things. But when they did something right, I was the first one to say, that's right, that's a good idea. My members who do that work I have lots of my members in my membership is very broad, the broadest representation of workers in Ontario. And there are a lot of experts in there. We got we got researchers, we got every kind of occupation you can imagine. And when they say something was good, we'd come right out with press release, say, hey, that's a good thing. And so Ford just spent all this time undoing everything, and then look what happened.
Yeah.
You know, like I don't, Jay, I don't use cannabis, right? I don't drink it.
I got you covered.
Yeah. I got a couple of
Our next guest
I got
does
a
too.
couple of buddies use more than I'd ever dream of. But if you're going to have something available, then it should be available, right? And they should do it. And the workers at the LCBO do understand social responsibility. The companies there, LCBO, are there to make a profit, but also maintain that social contract with society that we're going to be responsible. My folks understand that if they make a mistake, sell to a minor, they can get disciplined and fired.
Right.
So this model would do that. And I'm not saying private retailers in the cannabis world won't do that, but I'm just saying when you got something, you know, there's this whole world of rules around cannabis I think still need to evolve and things like that. But this is a good, the LCBO would be a good, safe alternative for municipalities that would like a public option. And I saw the plans that for the stores they were going to open. They looked like Apple stores.
Yeah.
Apple might not like me saying that, but and you were going to be able to taste, touch, smell, like all that, and they had it all done. And I don't know where all those they'd built all the cabinets and everything else, all the leases.
And the leases are still, I assume, still being held.
Yeah, they're being paid. Yeah, they'd have to pay the leases.
Yeah.
So it's a model that I think worthy of consideration. And for people in the industry that, you know, there are some people that told me I was at a cannabis conference. I once held up a sign, LCCBO, Liquor Cannabis Control Board of Ontario, but half the room booed me, the other half cheered me. So I figure there's some interest in the industry, in people in the industry themselves, on at least, you know, if you're selling there, the check's going to cash, and your product's going to hit the market and be safe, and you'll be forced to make it safe, right?
Yeah, and I don't profess to know what the future holds, but the lottery, especially the second lottery, actually.
Oh, it's just a disaster.
Yeah, I mean, there's Innisfil, which is a tiny town.
Three
in
stores
one strip mall. On one block. I mean, it's really,
block,
it was this. I mean, we could talk broader because I'd like to sort of zoom out because I do think that there is this. Again, I'm American, so I have the idea that the government could have no regulations and that there's going to be this sort of free for all private industry. Great, then make it that. Right, like see who wins and see who does, but sort of constraining that in some way, and in some way that doesn't make sense. We're gonna be a year from now still having the same conversation that the rollout is flawed.
And you won't drive out, in my view, you won't eliminate the the illegal market, but also growers are going to have to compete with First Nations.
Yeah.
I mean, they can sell unlimited amounts, and you know, my hat's off to them. They're entrepreneurial, and down near where I live, I mean, there's dozens of stores.
Yeah, you live east, right?
I live in Kingston, so there's lots of competition out there already. But I still say, cannabis, like alcohol, is a drug. There are robust rules and guidelines around alcohol because there is a downside on the social side from use and abuse. Yeah. And in cannabis, there's still a lot of unanswered questions. Like still a lot of doctors saying, "Well, I don't know if I want to prescribe it," and some do. But I think in time, I think on the medical side, cannabis, I believe, because I know some people in the world that do that kind of research, that there is great opportunity to make the human condition better and get people off of their drugs. And my own union, our staff that work for the union, we cover their medical cannabis.
Yeah, and we had this conversation way back in October of 2017, which seems like an age ago, that you were really forward thinking as an employer, that you were going to cover this for your employees.
Well, because now you see, I can legitimately go out and say to other employers, including them, I represent 35,000 workers that work for the government of Ontario. Come on, cover it. I had the Liberals heading that way, and they went and lost the election. But I mean, the evidence we have so far, and we don't have a huge sample, but quite a few of our staff, you know, they have some chronic conditions, and we also, their family members are covered. So we got enough evidence now to say I think it's very beneficial. And I think in time you'll see less reliance for painkillers, for example, on opioids and things like that, which is a horrible drug. They're all a horrible strain of drugs. Yeah. So anyway, I keep trying to say the problem we had was our insurance carrier fought us like crazy on it. Fine, and we just said, you know, we pay the bills. It's like cost plus.
Right.
So you don't want to do it. We'll just go shopping for another company that will. They figured it out.
Yeah, now they all are. Now they're eager to, because I think for the same reason. That
it's a huge market out there. Well, I mean, we're heavily involved with boots on the ground and a couple of groups that deal with PTSD and first responders. Yeah. And what I've learned there is the benefits is just it's amazing the benefits for people that suffer from PTSD. And I've seen it firsthand. I've talked to people firsthand. So I am a true believer, even though I don't use it. I'm a true believer in the potential.
Yeah.
And on the recreation side, then if you want people to try it, why are you making them drive 100 kilometers or go see your local dealer and you still don't know if you're getting good stuff. You know?
Right. So I just want to bring it back to the most recent, and that is we're going to have, even if it's flawed, we're going to have more retailers in Ontario, certainly more than 75, whatever it's going to be soon. And we're going to have this new wave of sort of presumably market-driven cannabis retail. Yeah. And your position is you want the LCBO to be able to compete.
Yes. And there's one more reason I'd like to say I was on a panel or being interviewed with another, I can't remember his name, he was a lawyer for one of the cannabis growers. And he actually admitted that the marketing strategy will be like alcohol. Well, in the alcohol world, 80% of the product is consumed by young males between the ages of 19 and 25. Nice. And if you're promoting cannabis for that age group, the science says, you know what, during that age group, you should be careful.
Yeah.
So one thing about the LCBO, they will advertise and promote in what I believe will be a very responsible manner, and also say here's the risk along with the opportunity. If you want to have fun, you want to get mellow or whatever, and because there's still a lot of unknowns, right? So I just like that social responsibility part. And yes, I'm biased. They're my members.
That's fine.
But and my job is to advocate for them. But there's people in that world that I don't want to do cannabis. Well. Yeah. They put new products on your shelves every day of the week, or if they open their own stores. And again, I saw the stores they were going to open. Man, they were cool. Yeah. It was a good experience.
Well, I want to hand it to you because there aren't that many government policies that bring together OPSU and real sort of market-driven folks in the cannabis industry together to agree that the government is screwing something up. Yeah. But in this case, it actually there's lots of agreement around that.
Yeah.
Well, as always, I really appreciate you coming by, sharing your thoughts and OPSU's positions, and we look forward to having you down the road as well.
Okay, thanks, Jay. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Smokey.
Thanks.
We'll be right back. Thanks so much.